Hey, I'm Lee, and this is Cass, and this is Cass Lee Productions. Okay, so I was going to tell you about the second part to our New York trip. Now, I realized that the bullet point I put down isn't exactly funny, but I realized that one part of it may be, so I'm going to share that part with you instead of elaborating on everything that happened that day in that specific park in New York. I know we've been there 3 times. One time we were just wandering through, another time on what is it called, a tour, and the third time was to get to the boats that were going to take us to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. So, me and my friends, especially T and I, um, really enjoyed climbing these huge rock formations they had there. Like they had one that was like this tall and was kind of up a sheer cliff. And I've always loved like rock climbing just in general. I love finding, the footholds and handholds. I had this giant rock I used to climb outside my house. Okay, not outside my house. It was technically when me and my dad were walking, which is a story for another time, I suppose. But it's just always been enjoyable for me. I don't do full on rock climbing with harness and up the side of like plateaus and whatever you want to call them, other rock formations. Generally just big rocks. And so what is it on? There's this one up this steep really hill, and me and T are like, we should totally go and climb this. But like I mentioned, this was the steep rock. And so me and T are going and we're on our way up there, and then T ends up getting to a certain point and he goes, no, there's fucking class back here. Let's not do that. I'm like, no, we should still try to find another route. And Kay's mom's just like, no, that's just not happening. So that was the sort of funny one. It's not truly funny. What? You got it anyway! Okay, the next one on the list was the concert. Okay, so I found it kind of funny, but I mean, it made sense that we were a band concert going to see another, like, an orchestra. I found that very funny, even though it made complete sense. Um, so it's been a long day of, walking, having fun, and going to place. And the last thing on our schedule for that day was the orchestra. At this point, I don't remember how far we were on this trip. Maybe it was the third day or fourth day, but it had been we were definitely more than one day into this trip. And so at this point, all of us are kind of having this fatigue because we kind of get at the hotel late and then rise early to do something new. It was better than the Disney trip we had, which was a lot of walking. At least in New York, we had a bus to take us places, and the walking wasn't that bad, so our feet didn't hurt as much. But you still got pretty wiped out from walking around New York. So a lot of the people, we end up sitting down and they start playing, and their music is just beautiful. I think we went to the Philharmonics, is the people who were playing, and the music was just wonderful. I mean, everything was just really beautiful. But you see, the problem is that it was too soothing, the first few songs they played, because a few of the band kids actually ended up falling asleep. And I remember that to keep awake, I had the notebook, as I mentioned, that I was writing down all this stuff in to remember the trip. And I'm on this page trying to stay awake, and on it I'm just like going with the music, like da 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 da, just doing random scribbles practically all over this page, trying to stay awake for this concert, because I knew they put a lot of work into it, because that's what us people, band people, do, is we put a lot of work into it and we practice for so long. And for multiple days and especially since they're professionals, which means they probably put even more work into it than I even know. And so they're like totally playing, rocking it out, and I'm trying my best to stay awake. And eventually we end up getting to the intermission, and this one kid goes, oh god, geez, I'm just so tired. I'm just fighting to keep my eyes open. And this other kid goes, yeah, I know, that's why I resorted to counting the lights. And you see, in this auditorium they had lights around the seating booths where you sit down, up and down. Then there was the lights above us, a few on, a few off, and then a few over the stage. And he had resorted to counting all the lights on the ceiling, all the lights to the side of us. And so he starts telling the guy, the person's like, oh, really? How many lights are there? And he names off a number, and he goes, how many light bulbs are there? And he names off another number, and he goes, now how many are on and how many off? And he goes, that's what I was going to count next. And so I thought that was a pretty funny thing. What happened, the fact that this guy was just counting lights just to be like, I need to stay awake. And we got on the bus afterwards, and so many band kids felt so horrible for falling asleep during this performance because they were so tired, because they're like, they must have worked so hard, but it was just I was so tired, and the music was just so beautiful, and so most of them just ended up falling asleep. And yeah, I have to admit, I would feel bad if I'd end up falling asleep. That's why I resorted to scribbling on my notepad. Let's see, the next one is the bus ride. Okay, so for those of you who've never went on a long trip with your school that wasn't on the other side of the world, you would know that, at least in our case, our school doesn't have a lot of money unless a lot of stuff we do is fundraisers, and the most we can ever save up for is charter buses. Charter buses, people. Now, on the way down to Florida, they ended up doing a day trip all the way back, like drove through the night. And maybe, like, I don't know if they did a 2-stop down or if they just went straight down to Florida too. But in the New York trip, we did end up staying in another hotel because we stopped in Philadelphia to check out some of the museums and stuff like that, and then moved on. So we ended up, the bus trip was okay, the bus trip is sort of horrible because, number one, it's really long. Number two, if you didn't end up picking the person you sit next to, it can make for an awkward drive and a lot of silence. So there's that. There's also, like, there's supposed to be a plug per every seat, but this doesn't always hold true. So if you bring something that has a charge, it can die before you get to your destination, and you can pretty much stuck doing nothing except for watching whatever someone decided to put on the TV. So the trips are sort of taxing. I mean, there's nothing funny about them. I just wanted to point out that it's really hard to fall asleep on them, especially if you have a neighbor who doesn't like human contact. Likely I had someone who didn't mind human contact, neither of us did, so we were fine with each other the whole entire ride. Yeah, but there really isn't much to do, and I guess that's the main hard thing to fight. And people are loud, and there's a lot of stuff going on, so even if you're trying to listen to a movie, you can't always hear it. So I guess I just wanted to complain about the bus ride a bit. I mean, I didn't consider it that bad. This was my first time on the charter bus because on the Florida one, I joined my mom for the book trip down and up. So I did not get the grievances of the other band kids about the horrible bus ride. I can only imagine how bad it must have been, honestly. And honestly, the person I sat next to in the bus ride, I didn't actually know in Florida, but they were pretty cool. I still like them as a person. So, yeah. And then the very last thing on our list to New York, the list was upside down. Let's see. Oh, yeah. You know how you go to, like, a new place and you want to try the different foods they offer there, because now it's New York, so the foods only really slightly maybe differ from what I eat where I live. It's like when I went to camp in Wisconsin. So what do you eat in Michigan? Spaghetti, hot dogs, lasagna, all the stuff you eat. What? We're just a state apart. What can be so different, man? It's like it's usually, but there was a few specific technical. There's different places, of course, that offer food. And, like, I guess it'd be like the local restaurant thing. Like, here in Michigan, we have something called Uncle Ray's. It is just a hometown business. It's not Ritz brand. It's technically a type of Dairy Queen, but all of us call it by Uncle Ray's, and it's like homemade ice cream and everything, and all of us love it. So in New York, you definitely have, kind of different small businesses that you may not see in Michigan that offer a different way of how they make stuff. And the whole entire time I was in New York, the only thing I ate was steak and cheese sandwiches. I only had Philly cheesesteak practically the whole entire time I was there. When I had the option to eat where I wanted to eat, I was eating a Philly cheesesteak. I really like steak. I really do. So Philly cheesesteak. I just figured could never go wrong with a Philly cheesesteak. I mean, just seemed a-okay in my book. There's other sandwiches. I ended up getting something from a dessert stand and stuff, but if it wasn't something we'd already pre-ordered from our menu for dinner, and if it wasn't something that we had at the hotel, it was Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. Yeah. I'm honestly surprised how many sandwiches I had while in New York City. Because, I ate at Subway, and then I also had a Philly cheesesteak on the way up, and then I had one when we went to this little food court, and then we went to this other place, and I ended up having one there too. We also went to Starbucks a lot, and I got hot cocoa every time because it was cold. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of my New York trip story. I know this one wasn't really funny, and I apologize. There's parts that I thought were kind of highlighted, but apologies. So, like, subscribe, and I feel like I'm forgetting one, but it's fine. It's fine. You guys will remember for me. Yes. Yes. Okay. So, hope I made you laugh, because that's what I'm here to do, and relieve my stress. This is fun. I'm doing it for funsies also. I'm doing it for 3 reasons. Would it now be 6?